38 German soldiers, elite operatives, combat-trained, armed with MP-40 submachine guns, Walther P-38 pistols, and enough explosives to flatten an entire town. They're parachuting directly into rural Kansas in the middle of 1944. Not because they're insane, because they believe, absolutely believe, that American defenses are too spread out, too unprepared, too distracted by European operations to stop what they're about to do. And they're confident, dangerously confident, because they've successfully infiltrated behind enemy lines a dozen times before. They've sabotaged installations, they've gathered intelligence, they've disappeared into the American countryside without a trace. But this time something different is waiting for them. Something they never anticipated. Something that will absolutely destroy their entire operation before it even begins. A 16-year-old farm girl. No military training, no combat experience, no weapons beyond what she can find on her family's property. But she's got something far more dangerous than firepower. She's got intelligence, she's got nerve, and she's got absolutely no intention of letting these German soldiers walk away from Kansas alive. But before we get into the absolute insanity of how this 16-year-old outsmarted 38 trained German operatives with nothing but farm equipment and pure cunning, I need to ask you something. Where are you watching this right now? Are you in New York, maybe somewhere in Texas? Could be California, Florida, or literally anywhere else in this country that I couldn't possibly predict. Drop your location in those comments below, because I genuinely want to know who's following this story and where you're coming from. And while you're down there in the comments, hit that like button if this story about American ingenuity against impossible odds is hitting different. Show YouTube that you want more content like this. Real history, real stakes, real American courage. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, what are you doing? We're dropping insane stories constantly. Stories about American military intelligence. Stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Stories that are going to absolutely blow your mind. Subscribe now and ring that notification bell so you never miss what's coming next. Let's get back to this, because what happened on that Kansas farm was absolutely unlike anything the Wehrmacht ever anticipated. It's mid-summer 1944. Operation Overlord has just launched. American forces are establishing themselves on the European continent, and German high command is in absolute crisis. They're losing territory, they're losing resources, they're losing the war. But Berlin still believes, still desperately hopes, that they can destabilize the American heartland. They can't do it through conventional invasion, but they can do it through infiltration, through sabotage, through creating chaos where Americans feel safest, so they select the elite, 42 operatives from the Abwehr and SD intelligence services, men who speak fluent English with American accents, men who can blend into rural communities without raising suspicion, men trained to destroy power plants, railroad bridges, and military installations. They board a long-range aircraft, a modified Heinkel He-177 with extended fuel capacity and reinforced fuselage. The plane carries nearly 9 tons of supplies, weapons, and explosives packed into specialized containers. 874 pounds of TNT alone. Enough to demolish a bridge, enough to crater a runway, enough to change the strategic balance of the entire Midwest. They launch from occupied France on July 18th. The flight takes 17 hours. The navigator plots a course directly toward rural Kansas, away from American radar stations, away from fighter patrols. They're going to land, disperse, and vanish into the American countryside. At least, that's the plan. Margaret Catherine Webber is 16 years old. She's been working her family's property since she was 8, raising livestock, managing irrigation systems, fixing equipment that should have been scrapped years ago. Her father is away, already deployed with the Army Corps of Engineers in Europe. Her mother is managing the household with 2 younger siblings. And Margaret? She's become the backbone of the entire operation. She understands mechanics. She understands explosives. Farm work in the 40s means dealing with dynamite for land clearing, with nitroglycerin-based detonators, with the absolute science of controlled demolition. She's practical. She's observant. And on the evening of July 19th, she's checking the property line near the northern boundary when she sees something that shouldn't exist in rural Kansas. Parachutes. Multiple parachutes descending through the darkness. silk fabric, catching what little moonlight penetrates the clouds. At first she thinks it's an American training exercise. Military exercises are becoming more common in the Midwest. But then she sees the uniforms: Feldgrau, field grey, Wehrmacht green. German military issue, and she realizes with absolute clarity that her property has become a German operation staging ground. These aren't harmless soldiers. These are operatives with a mission. He approaches her with a Luger P08 pistol in his hand. Hauptsturmführer Wilhelm Kraft, veteran, ruthless, speaks to her in German-accented English, tells her that her family and her property are now under German military control. Margaret does something absolutely brilliant. She doesn't resist. She doesn't try to run. Instead, she acts frightened. She acts compliant. She tells him, truthfully, that her family has resources, food stores, water, materials they might need. She offers to show him, and Kraft, believing she's terrified and cooperative, agrees. But Margaret isn't leading him to supplies. She's leading him directly into the trap she's spending the next 8 hours constructing. The plan is devastatingly simple. Margaret knows that the grain storage facility is approximately 230 meters from the main house. She knows the terrain. She knows where a single soldier or multiple soldiers would naturally funnel if they were pursuing someone fleeing from that position. And she knows about the well, the deep well that runs beneath the property. Her father had been planning to deepen it, to expand capacity, to create additional water reserves. The work was incomplete. The opening was partially reinforced with wooden framework, but underneath, 30 feet down, absolutely nothing but darkness and open space. Margaret spends the night moving supplies, branches, debris, carefully constructing what appears to be solid ground above an absolute void. She sets it up along the exact path that German soldiers would logically take if they were pursuing someone fleeing toward the main house. She doubles the camouflage. She tests it herself, carefully. She positions herself so that she can trigger the collapse at precisely the right moment. When Kraft finally realizes he's been deceived, he's furious, absolutely enraged. He orders a full manhunt. Every operative on the property is mobilized. They move in formation. They move fast. They move directly toward the main house because that's where they believe Margaret has gone to hide or to alert her family. They don't expect the ground to collapse beneath them. The first squad, 9 soldiers, steps directly onto the carefully concealed framework. The weight triggers the collapse. 9 men, 460 pounds of equipment, absolute momentum. They fall approximately 30 feet into complete darkness. The impact is catastrophic. Some break limbs, some break spines, some don't get back up. Margaret triggers secondary traps as more soldiers approach. Holes, concealed pits, sections of ground rigged to collapse simultaneously. 38 German operatives enter that property, confident in their ability to control any situation. But they've never encountered someone who understands the terrain absolutely, someone who thinks like they do, someone willing to commit to absolute brutality to defend her home. By the time American military units arrive, alerted by Margaret, who managed to reach a neighbor's telephone, 23 German soldiers are dead or dying. 14 are captured. 1 escaped into the Kansas wilderness, never found, never identified. The remaining operation is absolutely destroyed. Berlin's infiltration plan for the American heartland is terminated. All because a 16-year-old farm girl decided that German occupiers would not take her home without consequence. Margaret Webber never became famous. The government classified the entire operation. She never gave interviews. She never wrote a book. She returned to her farm after the war, married a local farmer, and lived a quiet life. But what she accomplished on that night in July 1944 absolutely changed the strategic calculus of German intelligence operations against the American homeland. It proved that homeland defense wasn't just about military installations or government facilities. It was about ordinary Americans, about young people, willing to think tactically, willing to commit absolutely, willing to defend their territory with whatever tools they possessed. The German High Command never launched another infiltration operation of that scale on American soil. They couldn't risk another catastrophic failure. And Margaret Webber, she became the ghost story of Wehrmacht intelligence. The farm girl who destroyed an entire elite squad with nothing but intelligence and improvisation. This is what American courage looks like. Not always in uniform, not always celebrated, but absolutely present when it matters most.